Hey, church family, welcome back to the last week of this series that we've taken time to dive into what it looks like to be a member here at Warren. Last week, we looked at effective engagement as our fifth of six core values. And today, we're going to spend some time looking at that last one, which is neighbors to the nations. And there's some overflow between those, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But we just want you to know that there's a heart at Warren for the world. There's a heart for neighborhoods, a heart for workplace. There's a heart for the local community, but we also have a heart for the world. And so as we talk through some things today, I hope you'll hear our church's heart and our pastor's heart as we kind of highlight some of those things. So Pastor Stephen Newman, you and I have talked before about a trip that you had to Swaziland and how that changed really a lot of aspects of your life and the way you thought through them, at least. Could you hit on a couple of those when we talk about Neighbors to the Nations?
Yeah, so Sarah and I, when we were first married in 2009, we're in the first in-home life group at Warren and praying with three or four other couples about what the Lord would have us do. In that time, three of the guys, the husbands, along with Sarah, went on a mission trip. I think in 2011, 2012, somewhere in there. We were married in 2009 to what was called Swaziland at the time. Most people know it as Eswatini now. But going and putting my hands and heart in a third world context where I would watch a 5-year-old walk their 2-year-old sibling 3+ miles from their stick hut to a care point each day to get the only meal that they were going to get, absolutely blew up Sarah and I's entire view of the world. We watched kids have ownership in probably that shouldn't have had ownership at certain ages or responsibilities that they did have, but also knowing, just seeing the communal aspect of how they operated in faith and depended on one another in neighborhoods, and just way more communal living than we're used to in our isolated, individualistic Western culture that we find ourselves, where we don't sit on the front porch anymore. We sit on the back fenced in area. And so we were spurred in our hearts to go, okay, we want to be a part of the mission in the world. And we gave up 12 days to do this and sacrifice resources. But then the Lord coming back was going, well, what are you going to do about your own neighborhood? And what is that going to look like for you guys? And so it just began like a long journey of kind of asking and answering that question and trying to hit rhythms in life where we could neighbor well, where we could show hospitality in our own home and try to reach the context where God had placed us to the best of our abilities to advance his kingdom together. And so that's made its way into now our rhythms. Now, fast forward many years later, now we have 5 children, us 2, and mission looks a lot different for us.
That's right.
But we also, in 4 different neighborhoods we lived over the last, almost 15 years, we've just tried to be faithful to what God would have us in the context that he has us in.
Sure.
Yeah.
We hit on that a little bit last week in effective engagement. We talked about how, and you've said this often, that if we were to close our doors as a church, that we would hope everyone would miss us, that there would be such an impact that they would genuinely miss the people of Warren, And we talked a little bit about the table, which is something you preach on often, how important it is to you. And we talked about hospitality and how that truly is like almost a portal to the kingdom.
No doubt.
And so while we can talk about missions to the world, there is also a mission to the neighbors in your neighborhood and stuff. And so that's good. So cool stuff. We have as a global or a global, or all of our campuses at Warren, we have different partnerships with different churches around the world, obviously. Can you hit on some of those that we may have?
Yeah. So one of the things I love about Warren is our campuses are set up and established to contextualize ministry exactly where they're at. So Belvedere is a lot different than Grovetown, which is a lot different than Crossbridge, which is a lot different than Augusta. And so at Belvedere in particular, as we got here, we were just began looking at how can we be a blessing to our city? How can we be, like Jeremiah says, build houses, be in the community, don't let the community influence you, but be an influence to the community. And how can we just be a blessing to our culture? And so one of the 2 ways to me that just highlighted very quickly what we needed to get involved with was, number 1, schools. It's like, man, we have probably 4 schools within a 2-mile radius of our campus. It makes a whole lot of sense to this being kind of the portal into the community. And so that's why we do teacher drives. That's why we do breakfasts for teachers. That's why we do, if there are any vulnerable children that may have certain things that they need resourcing wise, the principals, we have a relationship now and they call us in those moments and we're able to try to respond to the best of our abilities in each of those. And then the second was foster care, realizing that I think the statistic I just heard about a week ago is over 200 plus foster children in the Aiken County area.
Wow.
And so knowing that the most vulnerable kids and people in our society are at our fingertips, and how can we be a blessing to them? And so that means working through DFACS, our Department of Child Services, DCS, DFS. I don't know what they call it on this side of the river. It doesn't really matter, but we kind of work because ultimately those agents we know are overworked and underpaid. And so how can we be a blessing to them, which ultimately blesses the children? And then how can we set up care communities that come around fostering families? Because we know fostering isn't easy always. It's not just, butterflies and unicorns. There are difficult things about bringing a child into your context in your home, but wanting to train families to take a step of faith and become a foster family, but then surround them with a community and a network to love them right where they're at. So those are really two that you're going to continue to hear a lot about at Belvedere as we just try to be a blessing to our city, along with other kind of events throughout the year that we just try to partner with our city on, and just, we'll do a prayer breakfast with the mayor. There's a lot of ways that we just want to be in the fabric of the community here. And then it doesn't stop here. Acts 1:8, he uses his last words before he's ascended is, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you will be my witnesses. And then he gives this kind of concentric circle overview: Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and ultimately to the ends of the earth. And so we want to be a blessing here at our 4 campuses in this context of this thing called the CSRA, but we also want to reach our nation. And so as we look at our nation, what we realize through a great partnership with the North American Mission Board is that in the state of Maine, they profess less than 3% evangelical believers. That's like the 1040 window in the Middle East.
It really is.
It's absurd. And so through some church partnerships that we have there, we've been able to now plant a few more churches. And so one that our campus in particular is going to continue to partner with is in Wells, Maine. An amazing guy by the name of Court Holloway has Shores Church, which is just over a year old, and started meeting, I think it was like 8 or 9 people in a basement as a small group, just like our life groups, that has now grown to, I think they had 150 plus people on Easter Sunday.
Wow.
Engaging their community with the gospel, seeing people saved, seeing people baptized. And so we want to continue to have that partnership. We're going to have some trips coming up. And then ultimately to the world. And so I don't have enough time in this short video that we have today, Trey, to lay out to you probably 30 different countries of where Warren Church goes, all using unique gifts and abilities and people to do that. But one of the things I would just want to challenge anybody that hear my voice today with is, would you consider getting out of your context, giving up a week or 10 or 12 days to go to a place unlike your own, to be a blessing and to come alongside missionaries or church planters in whatever context? I mean, I would love it, if I'm honest, if every 5 years, every single member of Warren Belvedere gave a week of their lives away for the sake of the gospel. I know everybody can't do that financially or ability or whatever it may look like, but how cool would it be if more and more of us just raised our hand and said, hey, here I am, I will go. And then watch God use us in our brokenness, in our weakness, and all of those things, but just going and giving and being a blessing to the nations.
So good, man. So good. Well, guys, that is a wrap for this 6-week series. I hope today's conversation about the heart of Warren in terms of being on mission or our neighbor to the nations has been encouraging to you. And I hope you've heard that we genuinely value and we love the people around us, whether it's in our workplace, in our neighborhood, one of the 4 that you've lived in or wherever you live, or whether it's, in Swaziland or one of the many countries that we go to as a church. So we really appreciate you guys. We love serving with you on Sundays and throughout the week. We appreciate your prayers and everything you do, from giving time and resources. It's a pleasure and it's so fun to do it with you. But thanks also for being a part of this series, being a part of life groups, and above all, we just hope this series has been challenging, encouraging, and a blessing for you.